Hey guys, welcome back to Star Wars Timeline. My name is Ben. Today I have Chris at Starrapter with awesome channel. He does lots of reviews, video game coverage and stuff like that. Chris, how are you, man? I'm happy to have you here. I've seen your channel since pretty much I started mine, and I really wanted to interact with you and invite you over to my podcast.
Yeah, Ben, thanks a lot because I've been checking out your channel recently as you were part of the Outer Rim Transmission podcast the one night. And we were going all over the Tales of the Jedi stuff. And then I happened across your channel. You sent me a kind message of, just introducing yourself. And I was like, whoa, This guy has a channel that is basically what I need right now because I'm not well versed in Legends. So it's like, and I just dove through this deep hole of content on your channel, which is always a fun thing to just kind of dive head in. And it's like, oh, this awesome Legends content. So yeah, really, really dig that. Thanks for having me on the show. I can't wait to talk about all the things we have in line for tonight.
Likewise, man. But before we get situated, I wanted to know a bit about the person behind the channel. First of all, do tell our fans where they can find your stuff. You do podcasts, not just YouTube. Tell us all the info. I'll drop all the links in the video section below before we launch.
Sure, Ben. Yeah, so my channel is youtube.com/Starrapter. If you look up Starrapter, it might be confused for Pokemon. Just know that I had the name first because I literally made this name up when I was like 7. It was my original AOL Instant Messenger screen name. Some of the younger audiences might not understand what the heck that even is, what I just said.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my obsession with Star Wars and dinosaurs combined. So youtube.com/Starrapter. You might have to click like, did you mean this or something? You'll have a direct link anyway on so that won't be a problem. But all my content is there, like you said, a lot of video game coverage. Right now I'm playing through Lego Star Wars, Skywalker Saga, playing through all 9 movies and whatnot. But a lot of stuff on High Republic, a lot of stuff on movies in general. Right now, recently, I've been kind of more laser focused on Star Wars content. But if you go back and my many videos in the past, I have reviews on DC content, Marvel content, pretty much any pop culture. I have some different kind of walkthroughs of different conventions. I'm going to be going to Star Wars Celebration in a couple weeks, so you can expect to see some like video docs and stuff like that of me just kind of wandering around. So yeah, all my content is basically on YouTube. I'm also on Twitter as well, but also on YouTube, my little side project, also on Starrapter's YouTube, is Outer Rim Transmission. I just name dropped that a couple seconds ago. That's just because that is also part on the channel. I do that with Ben and with Milton, and that's where I think you kind of jumped in that one night and we were talking a lot. So we go over everything with Star Wars news and some reviews and stuff like that. We usually go live like every Friday at 9, but you can also look us up, Outer Rim Transmission. We're on any kind of podcast streaming service, whether it be Google, whether it be Apple or Spotify, etc. So you can find us all over there. It's basically just Outer Rim Transmission.
Yeah. So Chris, what's your earliest memory of being a Star Wars fan?
Oh man, yeah. So everybody knows I'm in my early 30s. So I grew up in that area right before Phantom Menace. I got introduced to the original trilogy right before the special editions came out. I'm looking at your background, which is awesome. I love it, by the way, because it's got the special edition poster of A New Hope. So that was one of my earliest memories of going over to my neighbor's house, and we were just chilling, and he had this movie on with this big slug guy, and I'm like, what the heck is this thing? I was intrigued. I was intrigued, but I was also kind of creeped out at the same time because I was like, it looks so real, but it's kind of funny. And so ever since then, I watched Return of the Jedi first, and I kind of just eventually watched the other ones. But I really got into the fandom probably like right around Phantom Menace. Around that time, I got my N64.
Nice.
Played a heck out of Rogue Squadron. Shadows of the Empire, of course, is still one of my favorite things ever in Star Wars, and that's kind of where it just started. And all the toys, obviously, like I was a huge collector. I believe I still have all my original toys like in the attic somewhere. But that's also kind of what kept me going. Stuff on the playground, right? I was like 8 or 9. I was basically the perfect age that George Lucas always says that he made the films for. Like
right.
Younger kids, like 10 or 12 and whatnot.
That's a very interesting point because just today, like I constantly throw memes of like fans asking them to pick their favorite character or for favorite era. My Star Wars Facebook group always interacting with fans because it's always fascinating for me to see what angles, what demographics, what cultural values and families that people come from and experience the saga. And I think that's what brings us together when we are not just fixating on the material itself, but who are the people, who are the fans who are enjoying this kind of stuff. I think that's the beauty of it. When you have a fan like yourself, perhaps, I'm pretty sure there'll be plenty of things that you and I don't necessarily agree on. That's a good thing. Because here is my opportunity to look into Star Wars through your window and see how this fan interacts with it and experiences it. And that's exactly the reason why I wanted to have you. Like, I didn't realize actually that you are a prequel era fan for some reason, and you just mentioned Shadows of the Empire so casually. I'm like, this guy knows his legend stuff. So it'll be an interesting experience, talking to you. But we're here to talk about specifically the Disney Plus branch of Star Wars, right? In 2012, that marked this new era. There's a lot of excitement, also a lot of worries, right? Fans are witnessing the transfers of power. Star Wars is going from its creator, from the heart and soul of this IP, right, George Lucas, into the hands of Disney. And of course, naturally, a lot of fans who spent their entire lives dedicated themselves to it, they had questions like, hey, what's going to happen from now on? We spent our lives invested in it. Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be better? Is it going to be worth? And in 2013, here is one of the biggest announcements. Aside from the fact that they said, yes, we're working on the new trilogy immediately, but here is a new animated show that we're working on. Obviously, we had a prior decade spent of watching and enjoying the Star Wars The Clone Wars show under the guidance of George Lucas. But now it's new time, right? And there's a new direction, there's a new art style, and they also are having a new time period. And right before the show launched, which is obviously Rebels, the first thing that we're going to kick off with, it was automatically renewed immediately the day before it launched. So this is how much confidence Disney and Lucasfilm had in it, right? And then obviously we had 75 episodes of a very special show. We're going to compare notes of what we think of it, and it lasted all the way until 2018. And the reason, Chris, I want to spend the most time talking about it, because it is that pivotal point. It is that benchmark that you set here, like, hey, this is the kind of level of quality that you can expect. So this is where I wanted to focus our conversation. What did you think of this show?
Okay, yeah, so I have a very interesting experience with the show because it also came at a time when it made me laser focused on Star Wars again. I think when they announced that George Lucas sold it to Disney, I looked at this as like turning over a new leaf. And for me, it was a time for me to get on board with all the content. This is an easy, like, comics, they put out like an issue number 1 for a series. And it's like, okay, this is jumping on point for new readers.
Right.
And that's how I felt about this new Star Wars canon and everything else. I was like, all right, if I'm going to go in, I'm going to go in now, because I barely scratched the surface when it came to Legends. So I said, hey, let's jump in. Let's just do it right away. And I got immediately hooked, right? Well, first off, they had the book A New Dawn that came out. That was like the first canonical book. I read through that like nothing, real quick. And then I was following up all the promotional material, right? There was a lot of like little videos with Dave Filoni. They had these little vignettes of like each character had like their own like little 2-minute, 3-minute little intro.
I remember those. Those were the marketing behind it was brilliant. Yeah,
it was great. It was great. And this comes. I'm coming from a background of I didn't really watch the Clone Wars. So for me, Rebels, I watched a couple episodes here and there, but I had really watched like the whole thing through concurrently.
Right.
Like as it was airing, right? I had gone back and binged it on Netflix when they put it on there. So this was the first Star Wars series that I was actually watching on a week-to-week basis, getting involved with podcasts. That's when I first started listening to the podcast,
right,
on a weekly basis with Star Wars in general. So for me, I kind of hold the sentimental value, because that was when I was really getting involved with the fan community. I didn't have the channel yet, but I was at least like talking to other fans online about different episodes as they would come out. And for me, Rebels was a very different show, as we all know, because it's not an anthology. You follow specific characters
it's
on a journey.
serialized. Yeah,
they have an arc and they're going through it. I really did enjoy that first season because it really is pretty tight. And there's some episodes here and there that are just like, okay, where are these going to factor in? But for the most part, it was a pretty tight-knit episode sequence as it was going forward. And it had to do with the Jedi. There was some cool like scum and characters like that in there. And of course, like everything with Ahsoka and everything else that was carried
Let
in.
me ask you this question.
Yeah.
aside from the cameos, you mentioned Ahsoka right now, right? And obviously Lando Calrissian, obviously Leia Organa. It is the main, as far as the lead cast is concerned, it's all new cast, and it's not involved with Skywalkers at all. Was that like confusing in any way, or what did it like give you an opportunity to be excited and say like, hey, here's a different part of that Star Wars universe that it's not concerned with Skywalker, it's doing something different?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a gray area there where it's like, okay, you have George Lucas who wrote Star Wars. He put in a line like "Last of the Jedi, will you be?" Yoda's talking to Luke. So then all of a sudden, everybody's thinking like, it's post Order 66. All the Jedi are supposed to be dead except Luke at this point, and Obi-Wan is out there somewhere. So it took a little bit for me to get past that point. I will admit, but the way that relationship between Kanan and Ezra was, and I'm really a big fan of Kanan because he reminds me a lot of The Force Unleashed. You had that one character that got blinded, Ram Koda. He kind of reminded me of like a Ram Koda-esque character because then he's also like in the rebellion in the later stages of the seasons of Rebels. But the animation as well was pretty cool. It was a little bit different than Clone Wars, but I liked all the locations that they were going to, and it really did start to see like it was expanding what we know about Star Wars. We're going
and the
to
visual
like
styles too, right?
Yeah,
like the backgrounds, the way that the character models look like, right? Zeb is basically a redesigned version of the first draft of what Han Solo used to be, like this big green alien, right? And then the lightsabers harken back to Ralph McQuarrie's original concept art, and all the backgrounds. I mean, when you pause anywhere, like a nice vista or panoramic shot in the Rebels, it pretty much looks like Ralph McQuarrie's painting. Is it something that you were cognitive of, or just something that excited your eye and then you kind of went backwards and researched on it?
Yeah, no, it definitely stood out to me a lot. There was the one episode you have like the C-3PO. Chopper is basically an original R2-D2. I mean, he's got the arms coming out of his head, right? So it was an interesting idea of, okay, let's go back into the depths of the Lucasfilm archives and start pulling out these designs and throwing them up there, because it does honor McQuarrie. It does honor the original
and retool it a little bit, right? Like put it back and make the old new again in a way.
But introducing the wider array of the Rebel Alliance and seeing the structure and everything like that, 5 years, but this is like approximately 5 to up to 2 years before New Hope or something like that. So there's a lot of ground to cover, and they really take some big swings. Some things were misses for me. Like I did not enjoy the episode of like the singing droid at all. AP5. I was like, oh, this is not for me. I don't ever have to watch this episode again. It's like, wish Lando Calrissian could have factored in more than a story with these like mining puffer pigs, but you can't get everything, I suppose.
And it was also, I think, a major shift, like for me personally, from my side, is that I was an 18-year-old when the prequels started coming out. So I'm a bit older than you are, right? I'm 40. You could say that with the entire prequel trilogy and with all the added expanded universe material, the comic books and the novels that I was heavy into it even before the trilogy started coming out. And also, obviously, with the Clone Wars show, which lasted for quite a few years, you basically could summarize the entire decade dedicated to clone period. And me, as the 80s kid, as the kid who grew up with the original, it even with the books and comics that I really was invested in, I felt a little bit oversaturated, and I said, well, when we're going to go back to that era, to that stuff that I grew up with. So in a way, Rebel also kind of like marked the return to, hey, this is the traditional era. Even when you saw the impact of seeing the clone troopers from TCW and going over to Rebels and, these are the original stormtroopers. Like, we're in business now. You know what I mean? This is the period when Luke Skywalker was growing up. So how did you, now the show is over. We got 4 wholesome seasons. I would argue that it ended on a beautiful cliffhanger with a promise of some potential new stories, or even if it ends there and we never see anything again, it was pretty strong. But for you personally, Chris, did you have confidence in Disney? Was this show a good first sales pitch to you?
I would say that it's definitely a safer kind of show that they could have went with, right? Because as you see, Lucasfilm is kind of rebranded itself under the Disney banner.
Hmm.
So they're like, okay, well, everybody, like you said, everybody's watching. What are they going to put out? This is going to be really scrutinized.
Right.
Of course, they're going to kind of play it safe. They're going to bring new viewers, younger viewers, and that worked because I know a lot of friends of mine, their kids love Rebels even more than Clone Wars, actually.
Right.
So they're trying to bring in that familiarity of like everybody loves stormtroopers, Darth Vader, Jedi, like and TIE fighters and whatnot. So it's pretty safe on their part, but it's also pretty intelligent, obviously, because you're going to get the majority of fans, both old and new,
Hmm.
into it. And then, as we see, this is going to like eventually the next that will come out is The Force Awakens, which has a lot of that nostalgic flavor, again, with X-Wings, TIE fighters, things like that.
Right.
So it's very much on brand for them to kind of go in this era. But at least, like you said, it's at the time, it was like, oh, this is refreshing because we just spent like all this time in the Clone Wars. So for me, it really worked because it's exploring different things. Like they're putting in elements that I never knew existed, such as Inquisitors and the
Right.
guys that go around. And you have Maul that's inserted in there, like all these things, this interstitial stuff that happens in between episode 3 and episode 4. Then you look at now and you have so much content that is stuck in between that era because there's that 19-year gap, and there's a lot to go over how you start a rebellion from basically nothing.
It's really funny how you put it together. I never viewed it actually from the same angle, I guess because I never thought about it, that they were trying to play it safe and kind of like call back to the original audience and say like, hey, your kids will enjoy the stuff that you enjoyed back in the 70s and 80s. Because here's a fun fact about the Inquisitors, right? I'm a huge fan of the original Star Wars radio dramas. They came out like in the 80s and 81 and 84, I believe. And the last one came out in 91. As a kid, the only memory I remember of being stunned by Star Wars and was when Darth Vader shows up on Tantive 4. Boom, he's there. He's so imposing. He's big. And my automatic thought was like, wait, hold on a second. There's got to be more guys like him, right? Because there's a lot of these white guys. So the regular soldiers, he definitely stands out. So he's probably more powerful. But there's got to be more, right? There's people got to run a whole empire. And the Rebels played into my childhood's memory, you're talking about nostalgia, and fulfilled that fantasy of Inquisitors. I'm like, oh, shoot. So Dave Filoni is kind of like building on that idea exactly in the trajectory where I would want it to go. But then I discovered very recently that Inquisitors are actually not Dave Filoni's invention, that they actually show up in the original Star Wars radio drama in 1980. Right, the Inquisitores feature. It was actually introduced by the West Indie Games, West End Games, and later on, a lot of lore that they established in that role-playing game kind of made overtures into that radio drama and early expanded universe novels and so forth. And I was sitting there, I was like, oh my God, this is really, really interesting. So Inquisitors are not new, really. And I made a whole post about this in my group, and it was all over Star Wars groups, which was quite a discovery for me as well.
Wow, yeah. I mean, talking about my podcast, my friends Milton and Ben are always talking about those radio dramas. Like I have to listen one of these days.
Oh man, you know what they do? Actually, one of the episodes for sure featuring Leia when she's on the Mercy mission. Remember, her ship gets impounded? That is a sequence from the Star Wars radio drama that they put in the show. Almost like, not exactly, but in concept, it's there. So what they did was they added a couple of scenes, including the famous scene where Luke is fixing his lightsaber that we'll never see, and he's interacting an Anchorhead with all the teenagers. That's in the radio drama, if you're curious.
Oh, okay.
So I sold you on the radio dramas right there, man.
But Rebels, as far as everything else is concerned, it brought in one of my favorite characters is Thrawn.
I'm right there.
I think they did a pretty good job for the most part, right? He could have been a little bit more threatening. At certain times, I was like, how many times is this guy gonna lose? You know what I mean? How many times are these guys gonna get away to a certain degree? But I'm happy he exists now because now we have all these awesome canon books that I really enjoyed reading through. So
yeah. On the note of Thrawn, honestly, I couldn't ask for more in a teenager or family-oriented show. I mean, when I was reading it in the 90s, the original Thrawn trilogy, the idea of a military general understanding the military stratagems of his opponents based on their artwork output, it didn't make any sense for me. But you know what? I ran with it because it was cool. I was like, okay, that's what he does. That's his shtick. All right, let's go, man. Like I wasn't too critical. I was still learning English. I was maybe 5 or 6 years in the country. I had to sit down with the translator, so I couldn't nitpick. I had to just enjoy what the story is telling me instead of like trying to overanalyze everything. So it was sold to me originally, and when he pops up in the Rebels, I'm like, dude. And not only did they put a Thrawn in there, his henchman Rook, right?
Yeah.
He's in there too. I was shocked. I'm like, if you can do this, hey, the future is bright. So to answer my own question, the sales pitch was quite there. I'm like, yeah, I'm confident. Let's go with this. Chris, moving on. Now we have Mandalorian releasing on November 12th in 2019, followed up by its second season in October of 30th of 2020. I really want to know, what was your first reaction to that sweet trailer that we got to Mandalorian?
Oh yeah, so it blew me away because this is a first time thing, right? It's not the Ewok adventures on TV or anything like that. This is high budgeted Star Wars on TV. It's the movie coming to your home screen on a weekly basis, and you could see the budget. You could see it was unbelievable where that could go at that time. What could happen? How, just my mind was basically blown. It's just like, okay, we got this. I never would have expected this to happen, and here we go. And a Mandalorian character, and we got to talk about that because it's like,
absolutely, man.
Most people would probably be like, Mando, what? Like the casual fans don't know what the heck. So I appreciated them going into that just facet of the Star Wars fandom and something that's been in the lore for a very long time,
right?
To kind of go that like inside baseball with it, where it's like, okay, we're gonna try to get our casual fans to understand what the heck this is, and now everybody knows what Mandalorians is. So that was my first thing, is like, okay, they are going in a route that I didn't think they would go.
Yeah, I compared the trailer immediately to the Rogue One. It's a story that none of my friends were asking for, but after we saw the trailer, we just ate it up, man. You couldn't. You saw that trailer, like, holy space, Anakin, when is this movie coming out? Like, I didn't even know I want this, and this looks amazing. Same magic was repeated, and I gotta say, creating these trailers is an art form of itself. And when I saw the trailer to the Mandalorian, I'm like, dude, okay, so I survived prequel era. The movies that I wasn't particularly keen on, but I grew to appreciate through expanded universe and understanding the story that Lucas was trying to tell, and all the rich material surrounding it, and kind of building Anakin as a true character in the Clone Wars show that really gave him the opportunity to grow and slowly, gradually fall to the dark side. Just so much nuance that, in my opinion, was missing from the films was in the expanded universe, right? And when I looked at this trailer, that's what I saw. I'm like, oh man, finally Star Wars grew up. It's for adults. It's going to have mature storytelling, not necessarily mature themes. I wasn't looking for M-rated Star Wars show. I don't think we ever needed, honestly. But what's this? Sorry, I never saw this before. Should be an hour.
Yes, that's remaining meeting time, 9:47.
Yeah, that's weird. If we get disconnected, I will just continue.
Okay.
That's weird.
Yeah,
Zoom, I think Zoom's supposed to give you 1 hour, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Now it's like 40 minutes, whatever. Yeah, let's continue. Where was I? I was on the mature direction of the trailer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cut that part out, Ben. Yeah. So yeah, as I was saying, it had that mature direction once again, and the appeal was there for me. Like, man, I'm ready. Let's go. But Chris, what was your expectation versus the end product that we got, like both seasons included?
Yeah, my expectation is I come from that background. As I said, I love the scum and villainy, the aliens, the creatures, the weird stuff that's going on in Star Wars. The bounty hunters is one of my favorite things. Boba Fett in general. So I looked at this as like, and this is at the point where we didn't know Boba Fett was ever going to come back. So I looked at The Mandalorian as like Lucasfilm's way of telling us a Boba Fett story without it being Boba Fett. and all the cool things that I've ever wanted to see Boba Fett do. Because in that first trailer, I think it's the first trailer because it's been so long now. I think he like whipcords and Quarren through the door, and then the door shuts off his legs. And I was like, when I seen that in a trailer, I was like, oh, they are actually taking this, like you said, to be a little bit more adult oriented. Like, oh, are we gonna get some really intense things like that? And so that's what I really enjoyed. Is just like you get to see a bounty hunter doing his thing, and especially in his first couple episodes, just walking around, but also seeing the aftermath of what happened with the Empire.
Right.
Because you got all that awesome stuff that we read from, like you said, the Thrawn trilogy novels and all the
Imperial Remnant,
Imperial Remnant, and how they're going to factor in. I mean, we see these stormtroopers on this planet wearing like this very loose fitting armor, and there's this guy with a big medallion that's sitting behind a desk, like this big Imperial warlord guy, and it's just like, wow, this is like the kind of Star Wars I never thought we would ever gotten. But since it's in a series, they can take their time, and that was the biggest thing I think I was taking from this, is like, how is a series in live action going to differ from a 2-hour feature film, 2.5-hour feature film?
Right.
They have so much more time to invest with character development, with world building. And we see that here in that first season, especially. He's going all over. And I liked how the setup of the episodes flowed. We didn't know how these episodes would flow. Would it be like Rebels sort of? It was like kind of cool because that first season's like almost sort of like a video game. It's like, okay, this first mission, we're going to do this, and we're going to end up here. Every episode like ends off on the Razor Crest going out into space, but like he's accomplished something, whether it be like get a new gadget, a new piece of armor or something like that. So it really did kind of feel like a video game in a certain degree, but you actually see like Mando like leveling up throughout time, and
that's a good analogy. Yeah.
He's encountering these different people, which I really like the cast of characters around him. I mean, you have Kuel, who is an Ugnaught that speaks basic, that is dealing with like having somehow earned his place to leave the Empire's enslavement, doing his thing. And you have Cara Dune, who basically survived Alderaan. Then you have Grief Karga, who is just the guy running the Bounty Guild. And that's a whole nother thing. Like the whole Bounty Guild is just interesting to me because I never really like heard about the term Bounty Guild until they introduced it into the Mandalorian. So it's like, okay, like there's got to be a code of these bounty hunters. And then the biggest thing is like this baby Yoda just showing up out of nowhere. Like, wait, what? And that's where the world gets taken by storm with what the heck is going on. And they had this hook of a storyline where it's like the mystery is there, and they're sprinkling in a little bit the M count and all this kind of stuff. Where it's like, man, they keep like stringing us along all those 8 episodes where it's just this, you got to know what's going to happen next. And I think they did a great job, and that's new territory for Star Wars. As I keep saying, how are they going to tackle a series versus a movie? And I think they distinguish them well enough from each other.
Yeah. See, for me, it was almost a polar opposite from what I saw in the trailer. I felt that it lacked nuance. Things transpired on screen, and you could logically understand what is happening and where it's leading you. And like you said, it's serialized, but it also each episode is kind of independent in a way, almost like Star Trek in a sense, right? But I felt that while things are happening, in terms of a student of film that I am, I studied animation, right? I have BA in a degree in that. And not to say that I'm expert animator or I know anything more about the storyline, the storytelling than you or anyone else. But coming from that background, investing time into understanding what the mechanics of it, what makes it work, I found it to be very, very lacking, and it was very surface level entertainment. It's beautiful eye candy, awesome action, brilliant production and filming and shooting. It fulfilled almost all prerequisites for me, except for depth, layer, nuance, right? And that episode where we saw the Mandalorian culture was like, this is the way. And you see the blacksmith and these other ones, the big dogs coming in and telling him how it is. He is just a foundling. I'm like, I want an entire season of this. Why are you sending me on a random frozen planet with bugs and spiders when you ought to focus on something that builds that world, builds him? And he never manages to emerge as a character because he's hidden within this helmet and he's there, and there is not enough room for him to emote. And I never believed how he transformed from this guy who's supposed to be a cold-blooded bounty hunter to daddy figure overnight. He's like, oh, I'm supposed to protect this kid. because it's not explained, it's not nuanced, it's not developed, it's not fleshed out enough for me. That was my take on it. But I also wanted to ask you, before we move on to our next show, on the cameos, specifically the second season, because when the show was being announced, and Jon Favreau, the way he described it, is like, no, this is the integrity of the show. It's about this new character, Din Djarin, and his story, and we're going to focus on that. Come second season, we got Ahsoka, and we got the fans tearing up over the appearance of Luke Skywalker. Did you personally feel that it was a meaningful addition to the story, or it was more for like crowd pleasing and inviting fans over and saying, well, look, if you were disappointed with Luke in The Last Jedi for some reason, look, at least we have the younger version for you here?
Well, that's a really good question, and I totally get where you're coming from. That to kind of go off your first point there with like, I could see where there isn't a lot of nuance, and sometimes us fans get caught up in the hype level of it all.
Right.
So I could see, yeah, because it was kind of aggravating, as I said. Sometimes those episodes, like you said, the Ice Cavern one, and some other ones can lend itself to be a little bit like, okay, let's get to the next one. And then when you watch it week to week, sometimes you feel like, oh man, I gotta wait a whole another week for see the progression here.
Yeah.
So I get it. Answering your question posed to me just now, I think Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka works, because actually when season 1 ended, you got to find this shit. I literally told multiple people it's got to be Luke Skywalker, whether or not they figure out how to do it. But it's like I already had it in the back of my head. So, and then Ahsoka was also around, I assume, so that could be somebody, especially with Dave Filoni. You can't ever put it past him when that guy's involved, that he's gonna throw in some of his characters. You got Bo-Katan in there as well. But I mean, for me it worked. I mean, either it was gonna be him, it was going to be Ezra, or it was going to be Cal Kestis. One of those three guys that's confirmed to live.
Chris, otherwise, you said it, man. You said it, Chris. Cal Kestis, man. You see, it's just like with Star Wars prequels, where the movies were over, and then when George Lucas introduced Ahsoka, it was a bit of a stretch, and it took a little bit of time of adjustment to try to understand, look, he wants to squeeze this character in order to create this new dynamic with Anakin Skywalker. Yes, it's a bit of a stretch. Yes, there is no room for her to appear in between the movies. But you kind of, once you swallow it, it tastes good. It's like, oh, you know what? Let's roll with it. Because inadvertently, from the moment that you launch a story and you start embellishing and adding on to it, and material piles on, especially with a franchise like Star Wars, which is 50 years old, you're going to run on your own creation. You're going to backtrack. You're going to, cancel out what you were doing before, and you're going to retcon. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. How am I going to spend my day sitting and fuming over that Ahsoka doesn't belong in TCW? Or am I going to embrace it on its own merits and say, well, you know what? The story is so good. I could still argue and reason that perhaps she doesn't belong. Maybe it's like its own little alternate universe. And yes, she does belong. And yes, she is one of the most vibrant Star Wars characters out there. And it's such a great role model for girls. There's so much value in it. Let's forgive it. Let's roll with it. Let's have a good time. When it comes to Mandalorian, I felt exactly the same way with Ahsoka. Because I loved that Dave Filoni, who directed the episode, he didn't beat about the bush. There is no surprise. There is no gasping moment there where he's going to reveal her. So yeah, we were talking about Ahsoka. Sorry guys, we got a little bit interrupted by Zoom. How rude, by the way. We're in Ahsoka. It's an important topic for us, right? But I felt that Filoni treated her respectfully because he dedicated a full episode to her. It was a reason for her to be woven into the show. Perhaps there was no plan. Perhaps Jon Favreau said, you know what, we had first season like this. Maybe I'm kind of backtrack on what I said. I kind of want familiar characters. Once again, what are you going to do? Crucify a guy? He's changing world politics. He's telling you an entertainment story. Just go roll with it. I take it all in stride. I was fine with it. When Luke came up, two things happened. You obviously nerd out. When you see that scene parallel what Vader does, he's destroying human beings on the bridge of Tantive 4, right before he gets to Tantive 4. And Luke is doing the same, but with droids. And man, those droids look good.
Oh, the Dark Troopers.
The Dark Troopers from the Star Wars Legends. Oh, man, they looked amazing, right? But, and you're nerding out. I'm like, Luke? Okay, all right, let's see how this pans out. And unfortunately, when that hoodie goes off, and it's not Sebastian Stan or a stand-in actor who could reprise the role and give us an integrity of the character. I can't call it otherwise, but a dead face, the corpse face, deep fake. It didn't look right. It diminished the impact of that scene, which is supposed to be so powerful and gripping. I'm like, oh man, why did you go there? It's like, come on, man. Right? And then you see Grogu and once again Din Djarin crying for him. I didn't believe those tears. Once again, it took away from the scene. And of all the possibilities of the Jedi, like you mentioned, Cal Kestis, that could have been there, I just didn't feel that Luke was justified enough to be there, to magically find that particular ship stuck in that part of the galaxy because Grogu telescoped him via the Force an episode ago on Tython, right? And now you're supposed to go and find the ship without any kind of periphery. Like, unless you're Jedi Almighty, I don't understand how that happened. But besides the point, I felt that it should have been a lesser known character being there. And Luke was exactly the tool that I never liked my Star Wars characters to be used and just put there, after the Last Jedi. And a lot of fans, this is not Luke, Star Wars is ruined. And they had to put something in there to kind of appease the fans. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, well, I will say I completely disagree. At least my experience on seeing Lucas, man, it it hit me and it feels so hard.
Magic, right?
It basically, what happened was the buildup, I think, sold it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the buildup of it, before I even see his face, I didn't have to care really about the face because I was already bought and sold into the moment. From the moment that they identify a T-65 X-Wing, it was him. I'd even have to see the X-Wing as it's got to be him. And it's just like seeing it through the monitor, seeing it through Grogu's perspective. Yeah. And then just seeing like the beauty of the lightsaber form he was using mimicked his father's form. Like, oh my gosh, it looked like Anakin under that hood. It looked like Anakin storming like the Jedi Temple or something like that. It was amazing. And just seeing like the little hints, like you see like the gloved hand with the saber, and just the build up, seeing him like doing the Force crush on one of the droids as it's hovering. It's
a beautifully shot scene, without a question. It's a well-crafted scene. It's just that one tiny part, that icing on the cake, that should have been just well cooked and prepared and ready for us. I just felt it wasn't ready.
Yeah, it goes that, you could ask many different people and they'll have different opinions. For me, I was happy to say I was sold on the moment. I didn't have to like overthink it too much. Yeah, now that I go back and I watch Book of Boba Fett, I look at that, I feel like they actually cleaned it up a little bit too. I don't know if they like.
We'll get to that other version of Luke in the Book of Boba Fett. But then we had, this is Mandalorian, and that's what it did. I would say that overwhelmingly, I enjoyed the show. To me, it's not amazing. It doesn't represent the best of Star Wars, but I had fun with it. I'm like, okay, this is fun. Season 3, when is it coming? Yeah, I'll be there for sure. Now we have the Bad Batch coming on May 4th, 2021, with this epic 70-minute premiere that was reviewed to death till the third Death Star explodes on YouTube. Everybody reviewed it, right? And it marked an end to Clone War era. Even the first little like preface and the voice of Wolf Yularen kind of like passing on this episode into something entirely else, right? I wanted to know, first and foremost, we talked about retcons. Kanan Jarrus and his story retcon. How did you feel about that?
I didn't feel very happy about it, I'll tell you that much. Because as somebody who primarily like loves the on paper publishing of Star Wars,
yes,
you tweak it, but yeah, it's tweaked. But then I kind of got over it. My initial reaction was like, oh man, what the heck? Like you got to have the Captain Styles and the Commander, whatever his name is, in there, right? Like there's little details. But then when I like took the bigger picture, and I was like, how does this overall affect the story? It doesn't really. There's just little details that obviously are different, but you end up at the same place anyway. So when I thought about it that way, I kind of like understood why they did it, I guess, because like Dave Filoni wants Kanan in there. It's a Jedi that most people will know, especially if they watch Clone Wars or Rebels and all. Well, he's not in Clone Wars, but Rebels especially. So I understand why he did it, but it's like, okay, like it just, I was hoping that that sequence didn't open up the doorway for them to do it many times in other avenues and other projects. That's why I
Gotcha.
was like so scared of like, oh, they could do it a little bit here, but what happens if they completely retcon something else, out of a book?
Yeah. I wanted to
Something.
home in on this little detail for two reasons. Number one is I wanted to run this little rationale by you that I heard from other fans. And there's another thing I wanted to mention is that so one of my friends reasoned this way. He said, could it be that what we see in the comic, which I love, by the way, I find Star Wars Marvel era comics to be a bit on the lacking side compared to the Dark Horse era, but there was one comic book that sold me
Okay.
100%. It was so good. Could it be that his survival of Order 66 in the comic is different from what we see in the show? Because the way that clones see it is different how a traumatized Padawan child's mind sees it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to like Ben Kenobi and the Hut in A New Hope, from a certain point of
From a
view.
certain point of
Actually,
view, right.
that's actually from Return of the Jedi, I think, or Empire, maybe
Mhm.
not. But anyway, that's what he said at one of those points.
You're right.
So I get that. That's kind of a cool way of wrapping your head around that, I would suppose.
And a second reason I wanted to mention it is I get crucified on Twitter when the almighty students of Star Wars Expanded Universe try to school me that they're superior. They know everything about Star Wars and I don't. I've only spent 20 odd years reading the books, but I tell you, I still learn things every freaking day, man. When I post those small little video shorts with lore, I learn every freaking day. But anyway, they say, well, how could you say this? They ruined the character of Kanan Jarrus, the vitriol that happens within the Star Wars fandom, and saying that this is the precedent. Now, from this point forward, the new Disney owners, they can't even follow their own timeline.
Oh,
And this is the point that I said. I also wanted to run it by you just to get your thoughts on this. And I argued that, guys, stop being Star Wars Legends purists because these kind of run-ons and inconsistencies happened all the time in Star Wars. For example, from when you go from the video game source material to the role-playing game to novels, there's 5 or 6 different guys who are credited for being the one who delivered the plans of the first Death Star, and it's never consistent. If you take the original Star Wars Han Solo trilogy by Brian Daley and compare it to Crispin's more recent young Han Solo trilogy,
okay.
there's a lot of inconsistencies. They just don't mesh. They don't work together. Why? Because it's an earlier era of Star Wars, because not everything was developed in concert from day one. And these things are bound to happen. It's creative people who back in the 80s and 90s had a lot less access to one another or to Lucasfilm, and they had to work in isolation. And it's not to say that Legends was not consistent. It was very consistent. It was very well organized and put together. And it did create some sense of canonical kind of storytelling. But what do you think on this? Like, hey, is it okay for things like this with canon to happen? Or no, this is an absolute no, and we should always be vigilant as fans that this never happens again?
Yeah, it's a case by case basis. If they are changing like a storyline of a character, then heck no, like it can't happen. But if they're doing it where they're slightly changing something, he ends up the same place anyway. I'm fine with it if it's going to help the current story better. Like the reason why they would have done that would be to like lend familiarity and a little bit of like kind of more connectiveness with the universe, right? Like, oh, it's Order 66. Like this is a terrible event, and it's really cool that we get to see it from another battle where we get to see Depa Balaba and all this kind of stuff going on with those clones. So for me, yeah, it's really a case by case basis. I mean, I hope they seldomly do it, but here's the thing: like you got like a big director on a movie that is, getting paid millions and millions of dollars or whatever, this kind of thing. That guy, if he wants to change a little bit of something, he's going to do it. Like the story group is not going to get in their way and be like, right, like whatever. They're going to be like, okay, I want this my story. So certain things that are a little bit more minor might happen along the way. It just, like you said, it's going to happen eventually. There's just going to be so much content that they want these bigger stories to be told in a TV series or a movie. They're going to sometimes have to override a previous thing. And they're trying to do it now. They're trying to structure it now, I'm sure, where like they have these areas where they don't want people to touch them, but
Right.
some things can always bend probably.
Yeah. Agreed. And I'm fine with it. Like you said, it's as long as it's done with intent and they understand what the roadmap moving forward is. It's fine. But also, the Bad Batch, to me personally, marked a shift in the way that they decide to tell Star Wars stories. And we have this Clone Force 99. Hunter, Echo, Tech, Wrecker become the heroes, while their close friend Crosshair becomes the villain. And now there's a major shift. And I hear this a lot from the critics of the show, who are like, "Hey, man, it should have been more warlike, like the Clone Wars." Well, the Clone Wars is over, and now this complete rickroll, and this young lady, this child Omega, becomes the heart and soul of the show, and these warriors are there to back her up. She's a centerpiece, and they're on the periphery. The Clone Wars, in a very nuanced manner, establishes that here's Anakin, here's Ahsoka, here's Obi-Wan Kenobi, but the true stars are the clones. It takes you a while to process it, but 4 seasons in, you're like, oh my God, it's about Fives, it's about Rex, it's about these guys. They're carrying this war on their shoulders. Here, the opposite happens. You have a new character, and these big guys are following her now. Did you like this paradigm shift? Did you like this change of direction as far as Star Wars television goes?
Yeah, for me, it worked. For me, that shift worked. Omega is a character that we didn't know existed, obviously, before this. And the lineage in its own right is very interesting. Like a female clone that could be connected. That's we find out is basically same kind of way that Boba Fett is. She is basically like Boba's sister in a way, right? Like she's the alpha.
Literally, right?
Yeah. So that is pretty cool. We're seeing how she's brought up, right? Like she brought up on Camino, and they're trying to show her some lessons, and she's going through some really like very lethal and risky ways of learning different lessons by being on the run, on the go all the time.
Yeah.
So I like seeing that about learning things on the go and seeing the connections between all the different clones, especially with Wrecker and her. I really did not expect like this big tough guy to really have this soft side. I really enjoyed that. And of course, with Hunter, he's like the father figure, and you get to see like that bonding going on. But it definitely was something that I didn't expect. It's like, oh my gosh, you see all these theories online before the show even came out. Oh my gosh, it's a clone of Palpatine or something like this. And it's just like, okay, let's not go there. But
the rumor mill is always interesting. Chris, before once again we move on to our next show, wanted to ask you as a prequels fan, I'm very, very excited to hear your thoughts on this. The showrunners of Disney Plus, and the Star Wars, they're very cognitive of the fandom. Mm-hmm. Despite not giving us everything we want. You're like, oh, we want more legends, bring Thrawn back. I'm pretty sure they're cognitive. They do research. They see what's out there, and they have to pick and choose what they show us. The finale of the Bad Batch ends on the destruction of Tipoca City.
Uh-huh.
What did that signal to you as a fan?
Yeah, it's like, okay, the Clone Wars have ended. This is it. That this is a new era. And that was shocking. Like that was pretty cool. Like just seeing the Star Destroyers just wrecking that place, seeing them on the ground, escaping the horror of it all, collapsing around them. But yeah, that to me was a really profound moment, because it does signify clear as day, okay, the Empire's done dealing with clone troopers. They have moved on. As we see, Tarkin and the other Admiral Rampart was like, yeah, we don't want to depend on spending all this money on clones. We're going to just do cheap labor, cheap machines. And that's when you really see like the Empire, because that was what I loved about the show. Is I was always curious about this, going back to Charles Soule's run of Darth Vader, about that transition of power from the Republic to the Empire, and seeing how you go from the clones and you transition to the Stormtroopers. And this is exactly what we got in this first season of the show. And we get to see the reasons why they quickly went to conscripted volunteer soldiers other than the clones. So for me, that was just like a very telling sign of like, okay, they're done dealing with the Kaminoans. But that was cool, because like Kamino is such a big part of the Clone War, a big part of the prequels, right? Attack of the Clones. You see all the Lama Su, and that's cool seeing those guys in there as well. Lama Su and all those the other one there. But
Lina Sol, Lama Su, right? Those guys.
Lama Su, that's the one I was thinking of. Exactly. So that's what I liked about it. Yeah. So the transition of power, clear as day there.
Yeah, for me, I'm a closet prequel fan. I like to say that I'm not a fan, but I'm kind of am a fan because I grew to appreciate those films. They're always in my marathons, episode 1, 2, 3, every time. I don't enjoy them as much as I wish I loved, even though I warmed up to them over the years. As I watched this season finale, something unbelievable happened. It was such a punch in the gut. And when you see those empty rooms where these clones used to occupy and fight for the Empire, I almost cried, man. I never respond to entertainment like that. And I was sitting there, it was so haunting. And you see it coming down. I'm like, oh my God. This is not just what's happening within the story. Like you said, the transfer of power. This signals the ending of an entire era, chapter of Star Wars that George Lucas was so invested in and so passionate about. I couldn't believe they did this because to me, this is how you truly care for the fans. You take something that they love and you make them care for it, even if you have to destroy it. Michael Stackpole says in his interviews when he talks about the X-Wing series that he does with brilliant work, he said, well, what you do to make your audience fans care? You take your favorite characters and you kill them. You put them through a meat grinder. You make something terrible happen to them for you to care. It's like, hey, man, like, I want my characters to start. You want the war. You want to excite people's emotions right to it. And that's how I felt. And it was such an unbelievable moment. It cemented The Bad Batch as one of my all-time favorite Star Wars stories.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I you got me there with that. I mean, that makes a lot of sense with just like sentimental value, right? Just man, just
I am a sentimental guy.
So I totally get it. I mean, I had my problems with Bad Batch. I mean, out of all the different series, it's definitely like my least favorite. Well, actually, I think Resistance is down there even further. I know we didn't even talk about Resistance. I don't know.
I don't think we will. I'm sorry because like I didn't finish watching it. I don't want to spoil it for myself. I'm sorry.
It's okay, but I mean, for me with Bad Batches, it got a little frustrating for me. In the same ways, I think that the Mandalorian seemed like it got frustrating for you with these little detours. I think there was too many detours in season 1.
Fetch quests, right?
Yeah, it's like and that one character did annoy me a little bit. That was on Lord Mantel, the old Trandoshan
Sid, the lady?
Sid, yeah.
Sid.
I guess we got this like inside joke on the podcast I do, or it's just like we just don't like that character. Just want the character to die, you know. But just like for me, it was fine. I feel like I wanted to see more from Hunter because at one point, like Hunter, like literally says, "Oh, I have permission to chase them." It's like, weren't you chasing them like the entire season? So stuff like that. I feel like the finale of it felt more like a mid-season finale. It just didn't have...
That's a good point, yeah. That's fair.
I was looking for a little bit more. I'm glad that we got a season 2, but I want to hear what your thoughts are on this whole thing with the Mount Tantus and that Wayland planet at the end there.
Mount Tantus, okay, we going there. All right. So I'm loving the show. I'm loving Omega, which is, in a sense, counterpart to Luke, a young person trying to find her footing in this world, understand who she is, and being the oldest of the clones, being a sister / mother / daughter figure to them, which is a very interesting, multifaceted dynamic. When we get to the end, when they just said that Dave Filoni is directing it, I'm like, it's going to be amazing. Let me just wait for it. Like anything that he does, he has my heart. He has my trust. He's the only one. When we get to the end and there's like ending, and I'm like, hold on a second. They grabbed the cloners, right? Tipoco City is gone. Where are they going? And that ominous music settles in. And you see those mountains and you see that range and it's a facility installation. I immediately knew. My entire...
Really?
Every cell of my body knew this is Tantus. I'm like, you're not going there, Dave. I'm going to go and Google this. And right after the credits roll, this is better be Mount Tantus. I knew. He is the guy who understands the nuance of Star Wars so well, like that duel between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul. that whenever he puts something, it never feels like Lego pieces being just piled on top of one another. It always has context. He always pulls it. Why Mount Tantus? Because clones, because the Emperor, because the Dark Empire, because that's who they are in the Star Wars prequels. That's George's creation, and Mount Tantus is Timothy Zahn's creation. The merging of two worlds. How can you do it? Well, Tipoca City is no longer. They still have motivations. They still have objectives, right? The cloners. Something out to happen, grow out of this. And we do know that Thrawn is alive and well in Star Wars canon because we've seen them in the Rebels show. You put the two and two together, it's so well crafted, has so much weight behind it, and to show it at the very end like this to make us salivate for more, I'm like, and tears. Like, and I almost, like, it's amazing. It's amazing stuff to me.
I had no idea what the heck that place was. It was like such a muted ending for me. I think that was part of the reason why I was like, there's no significance of this planet. Where the heck are they?
Yeah.
And then it came out like a couple days later. They put out on StarWars.com like these like declassified things where they have like concept art with like little like titles underneath. It's a thing that like probably barely any of the fans even look at, but I just like looked at it for one day for curiosity. It says like, and it said like Wayland or Tantus on the bottom of like the concept art image. I'm like, sometimes you gotta love Lucasfilm, but like sometimes like they try to hold on to these secrets too much. Like they just said it.
But
like,
you know what? I asked every Thrawn fan that I know that read the books prior to the show or in the 90s. They all knew. They all knew. Like they all saw it. Like, yeah, that's Mount Tantus.
Okay, so you think this will tie into the Mandalorian season 3?
I honestly don't like to speculate. I'd rather wait and see. Like I said, like I take all of this in stride.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah. Chris, moving on to Visions. Comes September 22nd, 2021, and we get this a very interesting black sheep of the family of Star Wars. It's not canon, but it's not Legends. It's in between. It's animation, but it's not anything we've seen before. It's anime. And it's not connected at all. It's an anthology of stories, right? Did you like it or dislike it? Or what does it mean for Star Wars? Why Visions?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. But here's the thing. My background is I don't ever watch really anime. I wouldn't say I'm against anime. I just don't enjoy it. So I don't seek it. Yeah. It's just because the artwork, I don't usually like that kind of over exaggeratedness of the characters and different things like that. So it just doesn't usually appeal to me. The most I've ever watched was Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid. And so anyway, I was going to this with an open mind, right? I was like, okay, I'm going to see this. So what I liked first off is the way that they actually distributed this, all episodes out on a single day. I happened to have off that day from work. So you better believe I just sat there for like 2 hours and just watched all 3 of them in one sitting.
I did too with my younger brother. Yeah,
that was really cool. Just like experiencing that, just going through, and I liked the idea that this was like not part of the current continuity, because I was able to kind of sit back and I didn't have to like kind of do the homework in my brain at the calculations, like where does this fall in the timeline. I was just able to kind of like sit back, absorb it. You see obviously like the different ones, like the twins is like just way over the top, like, okay, this is not like part of anything. They can go as crazy as they want.
Right.
And that's what's really neat, is because they have all different creators, all different parts of Japan's different animation studios getting to actually have a blast with making Star Wars and not having so many like roadblocks along the way with like,
they're not beholden to anything.
Exactly. So I love the idea that they were able to kind of channel their own love of Star Wars into what it means for them. And I like how they all had like a theme. Like you could all tell it was Star Wars. Like some of them were really crazy, but they all had like elements of the Force or lightsabers.
That's a very good point.
Something like that, right? They all kind of flowed well enough to be Star Wars. So they had all, of course, like the Lucasfilm sounds and stuff, blasters and stuff. So you would know from there it's going to be Star Wars, right? But just look at it visually, you know right away, oh, this is some kind of Star Wars.
Did you have a favorite episode?
Yeah, I like the Ninth Jedi a lot. That was the long one that was like 20-something minutes. Yes. But that one shocked me. I love how that thing just like
the twist, right?
Yeah, the twist at the end was just so cool. But just seeing the world, like the amount of world building they were able to do in like a 20-minute episode, like that's a very high stakes thing to be able to do, and to have that kind of economy with all the shots that you're showing to get the viewer to believe in this world and to get invested enough in this world in 20 minutes is a pretty big feat, and they pulled it off.
Yeah, as somebody who studied animation, I 100% agree. It's quite a feat to generate sympathy for character in 20 minutes. It's a pretty tough ordeal. Chris, I want to kind of sort of skim on the surface of the Book of Boba Fett because I had a couple of more questions to you. And if you enjoyed this podcast, perhaps I'll invite you over and we'll continue this discussion.
Sure, let's go.
So, the Book of Boba Fett, February 9th, 2022. The sales pitch was the legacy of Boba Fett. What is the legacy of Boba Fett? What did that character mean to you before the show came out?
Oh, okay. So Boba Fett, yeah, obviously everybody loves him for the cool armor and the attitude. Like he's that man with no name that George Lucas modeled him after. He's the guy that does the bidding for Vader. Like he's got to be badass because Vader picks him. He's the one that gets Solo, brings him back. I didn't really see a lot of EU stuff with him, so I didn't really have like a lot of stuff coming from that direction. It was just more mentally, like I loved to play with the action figure as a kid and making up my own like little storylines with him. So for me, it was just like he had potential because definitely in canon we didn't really have anything with him besides Empire and Return of the Jedi.
We thought he was dead, right?
Or Clone Wars too. Yeah, we thought he was dead. So for me, it's like okay, cool. Like I'm ready for this story because I want to see the canon take on like where this guy ends up.
Yeah. What did you feel they did right and what did they do wrong? And what's the fan reaction, which was very, very vocal? Was it justified?
Yeah, I think well for the fan outcry of what in particular?
In general, like it's a lot of people were booing the show and like trashing it and saying it was not good at all.
Oh, so the show in general, just not Boba Fett's character.
Yeah, in general, the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I totally get where people come from with like disappointment. I mean, if you're looking at what I would score right now, would be like a 7.5 out of 10. Like it's good. It's good Star Wars, but it's not like great or excellent, right? Like there are some missteps. They're stuck on Tatooine, I feel like, for a little bit too long. I liked seeing how Boba Fett has a different kind of perspective towards the end, but I don't think they executed it particularly well. They didn't really do a good enough job for me to accept the fact that he would go from a bounty hunter to having a reason for ruling the Tatooine. Like they kind of glanced over that a little bit, but they gave us what we wanted as far as like, oh, how did they escape the Sarlacc? Like we've always wanted to see that on the screen. At least I did. And we got that. We got to see him working with the underworld and things like that, which was really neat. So for that, it's pretty cool. We got to see Black Chrysanthemum, which is a character from the comics, first time character from comics making a big live action appearance. Right. So I love that whole thing. The
big black Wookiee guys.
Yeah, very, very cool stuff there. So yeah, that's what I would say. It's just, hey, Boba Fett, they could have fleshed him out a little bit more, I think. They could have fleshed him out. I love Tamora Morrison playing him, though. I think that was awesome.
He looked fantastic, man.
He looked great. He sounded great. Yeah. I love how they brought in his background as a Maori from New Zealand. Yeah. And he like incorporated that into like his combat style with the gaffy stick. Like that is really cool that they let him kind of take control of that character even more. Something I would have never expected, right?
Yeah. See, for me, Boba Fett represented nothing. I never cared for him in the original trilogy. He's just like another guy who's standing there and just Han Solo's like, Boba Fett who? And he's just like in the Sarlacc pit, whatever. I don't care. He was just there, like his cool armor, so what? So I wasn't hugely like invested and therefore not tremendously disappointed, but I felt it was just quite a subpar show with a couple of like really highlight good episodes like the Mandalorian 2.5 episode. Which was excellent. But in general, yeah, it's just it's no nuance, no direction, no true development. It's just all things happening on screen. One of the highlight of episodes, which was number 2, where he spends time with the Tusken Raiders. Expand on it. Tell me something about this guy. Don't just have him run across the screen doing stuff. a character doing things on screen versus telling a visual story and put you in the mind of the character and where he's thinking, what his motivations are entirely two different things. That's what frustrates me a lot, where they would hire obviously talented, good filmmakers, and they would sparse them across the episodes, and each one is pulling in a different direction, and there seems to be hire one of them. Focus an entire episode on him bonding with these Tuskens, creating that bond, so by the time you axe their heads in season 2, we care. There's an impact to it. My argument always has been that in Star Wars, it's not the eye candy that attracts people. You know, the lightsabers, the TIE fighters, the forms, the dark helmet of Darth Vader. It's the feeling. It's how it makes you feel. The characters, like suffering, and the Luke at the hands of the Emperor is like, please, Father, save me. That's what Star Wars is. And sharing that moment with your dad or with your relatives or friends, that's what this is. And this is what, to me, is the gaping hole in a lot of Star Wars today. And again, I don't want to be a huge critic. I love a lot of new Star Wars. I enjoyed this show. I'm not trying to like be a complete jaded critic and totally throw it under the bus. I just feel it could be so much more.
Yeah, I feel like they could have gone back into his history with his father. I would have loved to see Jango Fett. I would have loved to see Boba's take and his thoughts on the clones and how that was going. There was a lot more potential because there was the flashbacks, and I was expecting more from the flashbacks, you know.
So, Chris, we basically covered more or less what's out there as far as Disney Plus goes. We obviously didn't talk about Resistance, guys. We promised that if we do this again, hopefully we will. We'll touch upon that too. Please give me a chance to finish it. But Chris, I just had a couple of closing moments for you because the name of the podcast is the Star Wars Disney Plus show, but also the future, what the future holds for us, the Star Wars fans. So as far as what we got as of today, if you had to grade Disney Plus from 1 to 5, what would you give them? 5 being the best.
I would give it a 4. I would give it a solid 4 because, I mean, you have things like Mandalorian, which I have very, very high. But then you also have things like Book of Boba Fett, which is kind of bringing down that overall score a little bit. Bad Batch as well brings it down a little bit. But then Clone Wars final season on there was freaking amazing. So I love that. And you have really cool things like the documentaries, right? You have the behind the scenes, the gallery. They got a crazy name for it. It's like Disney Gallery, the Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, all those cool things. I like how they throw in those little extras there. And I like how we have Visions. So Visions is like that new kind of storytelling where it's like, hey, let's go outside the box. Let's explore this in a different medium. So really like, and we also have the Lego specials. We even talk about the Lego specials, which I really like. There's like the one that's based on the holiday special, their version of it. Then there's another one, it's like Halloween with like the Knights of Ren and stuff. So even Lego has gotten in on some of the action with the specials that they have on there. So I think there's a wide variety. And then just the fact that not even new content, but like all the Star Wars content is archived on there. So you can literally just watch
even
everything.
the vintage shows, right, which I'm reviewing right now, like the Ewoks and the droids, and the Ewoks feature films, which I'm so happy they're there, so the new generation can experience them.
Yeah, so I feel like it's basically, if you're a Star Wars fan, it's almost like you need to have Disney Plus at this point if you plan on watching anything or going back, because I mean, who goes for their old DVDs anymore? Most of the computers don't even have optical drives anymore. So if you want to stream Star Wars, that's pretty much the only way you could do it. But I think their content, their new content that they're making is great, and there's a lot of stuff on the horizon that I cannot wait for. Yeah, especially.
I would also give them like a 4 or even a whole 5 out there. It'd be like a total Disney show today, because honestly, you know, I remember a time being a kid in the 80s in Russia, watching these movies on VHS tapes and like, episodes 4, 5, and 6. Where's the rest, man? Are there like the 3 movies that we don't know about in Russia and the kids in America have? Like, what gives, man? We had rumors that there is 22 Star Wars movies and we just didn't see them all. And then I come here and I start reading the novels, right? All the books. We lived in a decade of believing that we will never get any more Star Wars at all. Nothing, right? Just to get a scoop on a comic book, like, oh my God, a Star Wars comic book, a new book came out. Wow, they're still paying attention. There's still, there's still fans out there. Wow, that's awesome. Just for the sole fact that you have, like you said, an entire archive of Star Wars, and Disney that some people like to like bat an eye at,
Uh-huh.
going back to the archives and restoring droids and Ewoks and all these documentaries where Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau get to say thank you, Kathleen Kennedy, who a lot of people once again love to crucify, and say she creates the environment for us to work and create the kind of stories that we like to tell. And you see all of it there, and you say, well, you know what? The environment itself is good. The experimentational process of Star Wars is in full swing. It's just sometimes it's the nature of all creative stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Steven Spielberg, arguably the greatest American filmmaker of all time. He has amazing films. He has flukes. James Cameron, he has amazing projects. He has projects that a lot of fans felt are less desirable. You know what I mean? It's just the nature of a business. I don't think it gives us the fans the kind of tone that we should be like, no, let's take it back, from Disney and this. Dude, just enjoy. Look at the sheer amount of content that we got. Even EA, not the greatest developer or publisher in the world, the games that they have produced. Okay, let's throw the Battlefront 1 and 2 away. Squadrons and the Jedi Fallen Order. Come on, man. They're like some of the most amazing content out there. We're not saying it's all great. We're not kissing anyone's butt. But we're saying the content that is there, some of it is really, really good, man. And you know what? I'm an optimist. I believe in the future. How excited are you about the future of Disney Plus?
Oh, I'm extremely excited. I mean, this Tales of the Jedi thing, whatever that's gonna be, the expansion of the Mandalorian universe with really cool connectivity, looking at things that go into other eras. Now we're finally getting stuff like the Acolyte, which is going to be taking place in the High Republic era. So that is exciting because I've been waiting for them to get out of the original trilogy, out of the prequels. Let's start trailblazing into new eras of Star Wars that we have never even dreamed about. So that's where that's going to go. Hey, maybe one day they'll just release like a feature film on there for just streaming, right? The sky's the limit, and that's what's really cool about the streaming is they are not on cable television. I think that's what held back Star Wars Resistance, Star Wars Rebels, because they are beholden to a certain schedule, a certain amount of episodes, whereas Disney Plus, whatever the story, whatever it takes to tell a story, however long the episode is, how many episodes per season, they have a lot more creative freedom with doing that now that Disney is like 100% in control. So that's what
I back you up on this 100% totally. We lived through a very strange time of 2 years of pandemic and sitting home, right? And obviously we couldn't go and experience and enjoy Star Wars in theater, and we sort of all kind of got adjusted to this format of TV shows. Do you have a preference? Do you like one over the other, like movies or TV shows?
Well, it's very interesting, right? Because I mean, I just went and seen Doctor Strange over the weekend. There's something magical about being in a room with people cheering when certain things happen on screen, and it's like a communal experience.
Yeah.
But it is kind of cool having the schedule that I have for work, where it's like, hey, I wake up, I wake up like 6 to get a video out by 9 o'clock or something in the morning by watching the episode the first thing when I get up.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have that, like, oh, I can get up really early in the morning, or I stay up till 3 a.m. and watch the latest episode of Mando or Book of Boba Fett, and like have that freedom of doing that. So it's very hard. I can't say I have a preference because I both like them a lot, the ways you can experience it.
I worked in a comic book shop, managed a local game/video game store here in the Bronx for like 13 plus years. And I've seen all sorts of fans coming in from all different backgrounds. And I just got used to reading comic books so much and understanding their value that when you're returning to the same story month after month after month, 3 or 4 years later, there's such a rich story happening there that I kind of converted in the same way to television shows. That the amount of nuance and character arcs and subplots. Remember how in Clone Wars you could have 3 episodes focusing on the clones and that, what's that evil Jedi that I always forget his name? The six-armed dude.
Pon Krell.
Pon Krell. Thank you. Pon Krell. And you have 3 episodes focusing on this story, and then taking those, and then when you pile it up all together in your mind, it's just no feature film has that kind of luxury to tell you that kind of layered story. So I tend to prefer serialized shows that are actually not just anthologies that take one continuous storyline. So, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Last couple of questions. What do you think they need to address moving forward as far as Disney Plus is concerned?
Ooh, tough question. Tough question. So, as far as addressing something, I would say that they have to kind of get out of the norm of just. I mean, well, this is kind of a more of a programming logistical thing rather than storytelling thing.
Right.
I like Star Wars having content on like a Friday, and then Marvel having content on like a Wednesday, because as we look forward, they're going to start like putting out Obi-Wan
Right.
and Ms. Marvel like the same days.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you're looking from that perspective, like from, just have Star Wars have its time to shine, have Marvel have its day to shine, because as we get longer into this lifespan, all these projects that have been in the works are starting to release, and we're going to get this slow avalanche of content, especially with the pandemic kind of lessening up a little bit. These things are getting done finally. So from that standpoint, I would say start with that. Let's have that day where it's like Marvel Day, Star Wars Day, and then whatever day.
Yeah. From my angle, I would say just be brave, be bold. Don't listen to those, biggest, loudest critics out there. Just do what your heart tells you as filmmakers and push for new ideas, experiment it, reinvent the formula. Yes, learn from the past, learn what made Star Wars great, understand its DNA, right? And inform your stories from there, but also play around with it. And that's what I enjoyed about The Bad Batch for me personally. It worked flawlessly every single episode because I felt they were going in that kind of direction that I like. Unfamiliar, not connected to Skywalker family, and giving us a chunk of that universe, which is so infinite. Right, that's what I want them. And if in case of something like a Book of Boba Fett or Mandalorian, commit to a director. Have one uniform vision, style, the cinematic voice, whatever you call it. I'm not an expert. I don't know these things, but have more consistency. Why can't we have every single episode of Boba Fett be as good as that season 2 finale that you so much enjoy? Why can't we have that? Is that too big of an ask? You did it once. Perhaps you could do it again. Right?
Yeah.
So that's my thing. And the last question is, I have to ask you before we finish this podcast. You and I converge on the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi as fans that come from two different cultural backgrounds and generations. You're come at it from the prequel, and obviously, I say converge because we embrace all of Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
You come from this background who as a kid enjoyed the prequels and this young, bold warrior Kenobi, and I enjoyed him as this old wizard that passes on in the first movie with that. Back in the day, I thought very corny duel with Darth Vader. Now I adore that scene. But anyway, what do you feel that the Kenobi show must accomplish? What does it owe to prequel fans?
Yeah, I think it's got to give us that good branch, right? We're between both characters, both like different characters in different areas, ages, I should say. So it's 10 years between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. So what I want to see is a compelling duel between Darth Vader, which we're going to get. But I want to see like Obi-Wan trying his damnedest to get Anakin to come back, because we know that doesn't happen down the line. So I really want to see that introspection into Obi-Wan's mind. I want to see him, the trauma that he has dealt with, seeing all of his friends basically die, partly because of him and like his lack of training with Anakin to bring him back from the dark side. And we know we're going to go to different planets and different things like that, but right. I think it's this show, and an interesting thing is this one is directed by a single person, Deborah Chow. So you're gonna get your wish here, man. We're gonna see how it is with
produced by Ewan McGregor, right? I think he's also has a credit there.
So he's gonna have a lot of say in how his character is, how the story unfolds. So that's really cool, having the main character having control creatively as well. So I think there's a lot to be done with Obi-Wan's character still, because some people would say like, wait, why do we need Obi-Wan Kenobi's story? We know how this ends anyway. But that's the beauty part, is we get to see this different side of him. We get to see ramifications of how he dealt with Order 66 and what inspires him to go on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I wish I could have said that, like, oh, I'm trying to keep my reservations low. I'll go with an open mind. My excitement is through the roof. I'm not going to lie. And I think for some reason, I don't know why, I just constructed that thought in my mind that this show owes it a lot more to you guys than it does to me, because Hayden Christensen is coming back as Darth Vader. And my only hope for it, again, I don't have a list of demands. Star Wars doesn't need to cater to my sensibilities of what I like. It was never about me. I'll read a Star Wars book 20 years from now. I'll either like it or put it on the table and never open it again. Big deal. Star Wars does not owe anything to anyone, just like George Lucas didn't. He created the stories that he enjoyed, and that was the staying power of them. People just resonated with it. With Kenobi, my only ask is be goddamn good. Excel. Be better than we tried before. Be better than a sequel trilogy, which I enjoy. Be better than The Last Jedi, which I enjoy a lot, including like Luke Skywalker. It needs to feel special again. We live in a generation where we're spoon-fed constant stream of entertainment. It's not exciting anymore. Like it used to be like, oh my God, the Phantom Menace is coming through. Did you see the trailer? Like, and people, you just go crazy talking about the trailer. That's what I want for it. And I hope that's my grandest wish for Kenobi to make us feel special again.
You're right. You're right. This has got to be a slam dunk. It's got to be a home run, because this is something that has been in the works. Remember, this has been originally a movie they were going to create this as.
Yeah.
Then it changed screenwriters.
A good reminder,
So this movie has been in different areas of creative control throughout. So, I mean, I think that they've been sitting on this for a while. I think we're going to be very impressed with it. I hope we are. But yes, this is gonna be the big thing. This is almost like a 3-part movie, right? We could have gotten Obi-Wan movie, but now we're gonna get 6 episodes. It's gonna be better than getting a single movie. We're gonna get, like you were saying before, the serialized television. You're gonna get more into the head of Obi-Wan without feeling rushed.
Yeah, Chris, it was a complete pleasure to talk to you, man. I was planning it for quite a while. You just have such energy and it's like such love for Star Wars, and I love talking to fans who are younger than me, who are older than me, who come from a completely different angle, and we all share in on something that we love. And we get to agree and we get to disagree. That's the beauty of it. We can all sit at the round table and have fun with it, and challenge each other's ideas or thoughts. It's like, Ben, well, it's not like this, it's like that, Thank you so much for being there. Please remind everybody where they can find your stuff. I'll definitely drop the links in this video, and hopefully we'll do this again.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much. First of all, Ben, I really had a great time just going over the entire slate of the Disney Plus content from its inception, even including Rebels alongside. I think you have a great perspective and a great open mind. I really love what you just said a few minutes ago about this isn't for me. And I wish everybody else could have that perspective of Star Wars, because people are toxic on social media and it can be quite overbearing sometimes.
Yeah.
But if everybody could just hear your message out there and kind of take themselves back and be like, hey, this thing isn't for me. Like you said, you close the book, you go away, go somewhere. I think that's a really important message, that people feel like they're entitled to all these stories. And it's like, it's gotta be this. And sometimes I even fall into that trap and I'm like, it wasn't this, it wasn't
guilty
this.
As
and
charged.
It's like, okay, dude, just take yourself out of it for a minute. It'll be okay. And you move on. So, but that's awesome. But yeah, thank you so much for bringing me on to the Star Wars Timeline channel, because like I said, I've been delving into some of your videos and you do such a great job. The Tales of the Jedi stuff, I'm learning about Exar Kun, and I'm learning about Ilkel Dromo like I never knew about before. So thanks for spreading the knowledge and really being, profound with the information that you're able to put out there in a good manner and expert level, man.
I appreciate it much. Too many kind words. I appreciate it. Look, I'd love to have you once again more and more in the podcast. So we keep this thing rolling. We keep having dialogue with ourselves and hopefully fans tuning in and listening to us and saying that, look, have a mature perspective at it. Like, not everything will be great. And we understand you guys. We understand that it means the world to you. I understand that people that cried who saw that Kenobi trailer, like this one reaction video, I understand this guy, where he's coming from. It means the world to him. And we're right there with you. We're fans too. And we also sometimes have to voice our displeasure because the guys at the higher ups at the Disney are not doing the things that we would love them to be. But you know what? We can all share in on it as fans. And I think the positive voice, the positive way of critiquing something always speaks louder than somebody being aggressive and angry all the time.
Oh yeah, for sure. But you can also follow my content, youtube.com/Starraptor is where you can find my videos. I do weekly comic book reviews for the comics that come out on a weekly basis. And that's where you can also find my podcast that Ben enjoys. It's Outer Rim Transmission, joined by Ben and Milton every Friday at 9 o'clock Eastern. And you can always download us on the go for any kind of Spotify, any kind of podcast apps will have us on there as well. And thanks again.
Awesome. Guys, so this was Starraptor. Please go check out his YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate all of you guys. Please drop some of your thoughts below. What do you think about our conversations? What were your favorite shows, your favorite characters? Where do you guys disagree with us that some of the brilliant strokes of genius of Star Wars that we perhaps kind of missed out on, didn't talk about? Chances are you'll see Starraptor here again. We'll get to discuss it all over. Thank you guys, and we'll see you later. Take care.